Hi, welcome to another one of our videos. Today I'm going to show you a series of exercises and drills that we might use for correcting thoracic problems. So very much strengthening the thoracic rib cage as opposed to just trying to stretch it. Just trying to stretch it will only get you so far. So there's definitely some things you need to do there, but there's a lot more to it than just doing a couple of yoga poses and a few stretches. It's a very difficult area to stretch anyway. So I'm going to show you here a very simple test you might be able to use to start with. This is just basically observing someone's posture. So there's a typical awful posture we might see. And then from there we see that person go against the wall, and this is just a thoracic extension test. So I'll show you firstly what it should look like. So you basically trying to keep your lower back against the wall here. So I've got to try and have like a dead flat position, which is normally not. You want to keep a normal curvature, but for the sake of the test, we're trying to see, can you extend your thoracic spine? Does your thoracic spine have the ability to extend? Because if it's normally stuck in kyphosis up here, what you'll find is there'll be excessive extension at the lower back. So the lower back will be overextending all the time because this one's not doing anything. So by taking the lower back's ability to extend out of it, we're able to identify if you can do it or not. So all you have to do is just keep your lower back on the wall and be able to raise your arms up above your head with your elbows being straight without any of your back coming away from the wall. What we commonly see is the person who's sort of in that kyphosis. When we ask them to go against the wall, this is usually what they're doing, and they see how they have to tip their head back because they don't even extend their rib cage to begin with. And they'll usually get to about here and they'll have to cheat and they'll get stuck about here, say, oh, my shoulders are tight, or try to use their lower back to find the rest of it. So that's a good little test. The test itself becomes a good exercise. After we've done that, then we'll take people to the floor and place them on the ground like this. That position's quite easy, but the minute we'll ask you to try and bring your hands to there, so you'll see very slowly I'll be trying to sort of slide them down. If you look carefully, I'll have my wrists flat on the ground. That's a giveaway. Normally people won't look like that. They'll look very much, I'll show you in a second what they'll normally look like. They'll look like that. And what that means is that this arm is coming forward, not because there's problems with the arm, it's because of the problems at the thoracic not being able to sustain extension, and it goes into flexion. It throws the whole body forward, and to get your arm flat like that, you have to crank up your shoulder, like really excessively stretch the glenohumeral joint to be able to get your arm flat on the ground. So the stiffness will be here, but it's actually the spine itself that's the problem. All right, so sometimes it's the pecs and that as well. It could be all of them, but most of the time it's the thoracic, the lack of extension that is the reason that you can't get there. All right, so there's a good example of being flat. All right, so and then from there you could go to overhead and try to see if you can keep the elbows on the ground. Once you've done that, then you could go to some mobility work. These are very simple mobility drills. This is a great one here. We find a lot of people struggle with this one. I used to struggle with this a lot. Work both sides, and you can do behind the back as well. That gets so we've done something for the extension and something for thoracic rotation, which you need both. Then I move into the strengthening phase of things. I may not do this early on, but definitely one of the best exercises for strengthening the rib cage is the deadlift. And trap bars are really very good to use. If you have a lower back problem, then you might want to address that first. This exercise is one of the best for that as well. But you'll be able to see here that this exercise demands of me an extreme amount of extension into the thoracic, and while at the same time maintaining the stability of my lower back. So I really need everything to be done at once here. So the strength, and the mobility are all being executed at the same time. That's why this exercise is such a great exercise. The trap bar is better than the normal one just for the fact that it puts the hands in a neutral position, which is actually puts the shoulders in the neutral position. So that's a great exercise to follow up after your mobility work, and you could work as a superset with those, and that would be a fantastic way of improving posture. Then from there I might move into some overhead work. Now overhead work is definitely the hardest stuff for thoracic, because to get that arm overhead, as you can see when we're lying on the ground or the wall test, there's going to be significant cheating at the lower back and also through the shoulder to try and find the lost extension from the rib cage of the thoracic region. So to simplify the overhead things, we put people in a kneeling position and we help them to move their entire body forward. So you can see how I move the whole body forward to then get in that nice straight line. I can really engage the abdominals to keep my lumbar spine quite stiff. I try to get my bicep right next to my ear there, and I'm really aware of the fact that I need to keep this good extension here. This is such a simpler exercise for overhead movement. It's a really great way to learn it. Yeah, so I might do a set of that in between the sets of the other things. I could work it with the thoracic extension drill or the rotation drill even. A great way to sort of use as a stepping stone to get to the harder ones, which we'll show you shortly. All right, so I could do 2 to 3 sets of 8 to 12 of that. All right. So then once I've done that, done a few of those, then I'll grab a dumbbell and I might bring into play the Turkish get-up. Now the Turkish get-up brings in everything I was just doing there, but now it has the element of rotation. So and both shoulders, by the way, are having to be perfectly stable and also have great mobility through the hips. So from here I need to have good strength in both shoulders and the hip and my glutes. Then I need good mobility to drive that leg under. That first part of the movement, all those first few steps are the key part, and then this last part is the lunge, and I've got to make sure that arm doesn't drive forward and I lose my posture. Alright, so Turkish get-up, great exercise, and you can see I'm going to show you from front on and from side on to see where that arm is. See how it's right, my bicep is right next to my ear. That's where it has to be. If it moves forward at any point, I'll drop the dumbbell and won't be able to do the movement. Alright, so then I just go back to the floor. I could do 2 reps each side, maybe multiple sets with the other drills. Excellent exercise for demanding the thoracic mobility and strength of the rib cage. Next thing I'm going to do is move into overhead work with a barbell. Right? And if there's one exercise that's really going to stir things up, it's going to be this. All right, so if I've done all the other stuff well, then I can really test this out, and I might bring my hands a bit wider, sort of into the snatch grip. Not a full-on snatch grip on this. You know, if a person's got great form, then absolutely I'll do it. You know, and I could just do a couple of push press repeats. So I'm not going into the squat. I'll show you a different version of doing that. So I go rack position like a squat, push it up overhead, and then move my hands into the snatch position a bit wider. And you can again see like bicep right next to the ear, trying to make sure I don't push my head forward and keep good stiffness around my lower back there. Alright, so that's the push press. I could do a few of those, and then after I've done that, then I can move into more of a moving thing. So this is where, a bit like the Turkish get-up, where now we're applying movement and it's a lot harder. So I'll set up overhead in my snatch grip, and then what I'm going to try and do now is move into a lunge. So everything's on the move. Obviously I'm going to need some leg strength, but because the weight is moving forward and backward, I'm really having to control extension and flexion so that the forward movement in particular doesn't fly me forward and send the barbell with it. My thoracic extensors are working really hard to stop me falling forward. So right there is where they're working at their best. All right, so a very difficult movement, can be very, very tiring, and obviously you'd want to do the simpler stuff first, but a great way to put into play all the things you need to do for correcting weakness around that thoracic rib cage. And you'll see how my head starts, as I'm getting tired, my head starts to fall forward. I'm losing my posture a bit because I've had it up there for so long. All right, so that's a good example of what it looks like when people first do this. All right. Yeah. So I hope you've enjoyed that video, and we'll see you on one of our next ones.